This is Cheryl Todd of Gun Freedom Radio.
And I'm the other guy, Dan Todd, reminding you that we and the show you are listening to are proud members of the Self-Defense Radio Network.
Find out more and check out all of the other great shows and content at selfdefenseradio.net.
Welcome to Unload and Show Clear, the podcast about all things IDPA. And now, here's your host, living proof that without practice, there's no limit to how little you can accomplish, Lloyd Bailey.
Welcome to another episode of Unload and Show Clear. All too often, gun owners and gun culture are portrayed in the worst possible ways in the media. This podcast aims to counter that narrative by shining a light on the members of gun culture who are involved in IDPA, International Defensive Pistol Association. Now, while IDPA members make up just a tiny fraction of the overall gun-owning public, I think they're a representative cross-section of that demographic. From all walks of life, rich, poor, and in between, young and old, men and women, and this podcast is about them. Today, you're going to meet one of these awesome people. Before we get started, let me tell you about GlockTriggers.com. Love them or hate them, the one thing you know about Glock pistols is that they are reliable. Out of the box, to the range, absolutely reliable. It's what makes them so popular with competitors, law enforcement, military, and responsible armed citizens. But one of the drawbacks is that stock trigger. Well, Jeff Wilson and the folks at Glock Triggers asked themselves, how do we make them better while maintaining reliability? Using stock parts as their foundation, they've refined the interaction of the metal parts to give you smoother take-up, a cleaner break, and reduced overtravel without sacrificing safety or reliability. Recommended and used by people like Bob Vogel, Travis Haley, and Ken Hackathorn, Glock Triggers custom trigger kits come with a lifetime warranty and a 30-day satisfaction guarantee. Visit them today at GlockTriggers.com and check out the Edge, the Vogel, the Skimmer, the Guardian, and the Hackathorn trigger systems. Use the promo code from this podcast, USC20, and save 20% off of your entire order. GlockTriggers.com, the highest quality drop-in trigger system for your Glock. All right, time to get on with the show. Here is today's special guest. Our guest for today is Steven Grantham from Eastman, Georgia. Steven, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Lloyd. I appreciate you having me here with you.
Well, tell us a little about yourself. Tell us about where you're from, Eastman, Georgia, and what you do for a living there.
Okay, cool. Eastman, for those of you who don't know, we're located right in the center of the state, what we call the middle Georgia area, real rural farm community. And what I do here is I'm actually am a chiropractor. I have a chiropractic practice here. And we've been in the area about 11, going on 12 years now. And so it's like I said, just small farm community and right. Very close knit. So,
Georgia native or transplant?
That's a funny story. I'm a transplant from LA.
Really?
Yeah. Can you tell with the accent?
I cannot.
Yes, that's LA for us is Lower Alabama. We relocated over here from the Gulf Coast.
So, grew up around guns, I guess, hunting and that sort of thing. Were you introduced to guns at a young age, or is it something you grew up and took up later in life?
Well, that's kind of a funny story. I actually was exposed to the outdoors and guns at an extremely young age. My grandfather, back before as far back as I can recall, he would get me up early on Saturday mornings before the sun would come up. And we'd go down to the local swamp just off the river, and we'd go squirrel hunting every Saturday morning, and that was our thing. And the shotgun actually was so big that he would hold it up, and I would stand between him and the shotgun while he sighted it at the squirrel, and then I would pull the trigger and act like I did all the work. So, but yeah, that was my first exposure at an extremely young age to guns. Was hunting with my grandfather and sharing those memories with him.
What a great story! Very cool. Where did your interest in handguns develop?
I think my interest in handguns began to develop as I went through my early adult years. I've always had more of a keen interest or an inclination toward handguns as opposed to the long guns.
Mm-hmm.
But so I began to spend more time shooting those, and just over the years, there's just something about them that just draws me to the actual handguns itself. And so, of course, I tell my wife I don't have enough, and she tells me I have too many. But so
Remember, when they ask how many you need, just say just one more.
just one more. There you go. I like that.
So what was the first handgun you bought for yourself? And why?
The first handgun I bought for myself, and why, was an H&R single shot 8-inch barrel revolver, 22 revolver. And the reason I bought that was because I could. You have to understand now, I was like, 15, 16 years old, and I bought it secondhand from a fellow or friend of the family.
Right.
Yeah. And so, growing up, we lived out in the country and had a big gully or ravine on the backside of the land. And of course, that was back before everything had to be done a certain way. You could go and toss like building materials and refuge of that nature back there. And I'd go back there and I'd shoot up a brick of 22s in that single shot revolver, that single action revolver, just popping caps and whatever else was out there and having a blast,
Where did you get the interest in competitive shooting? How did you first hear about that, and what was the draw to who introduced you?
That's a good question, Lloyd. Nobody really introduced me to it other than I was exposed to having seen it like on television occasionally, right, or, periodically some of the matches. And it was one of those things that I always had in the back of my mind that was kind of like a bucket list thing.
Mm-hmm.
I was, one of these days I'm going to get around to it. And my mentor for many years, I never will forget, he gave me this wooden nickel thing that had the words "round to it" on it. And it never dawned on me until one day we were talking about it and talking about competitive shooting. He said, "You remember that wooden nickel I gave you?" I said, "I do." He said, "What does it say?" I said, "I don't know. I never got that. I couldn't connect the dots." He said, "It's around to it. When you going to get around to it?" And I said, "Well, I guess you pretty well made the point." And that's how it got introduced to Mark and the guys down at 17 South. I went online and started doing some research and found where the next local match would be, which was about 2 hours for us, or from us. And we signed up, and I got up enough nerve to say, well, if I go out there and embarrass myself, at least it's out of town. And
so, they'll never see me again.
They'll never see me again, and I'll consider this a successful excursion if I don't get disqualified or nobody gets hurt. So,
Tell us about that first match experience.
Oh my gosh.
Some people don't remember it. Some people are like, they remember it vividly because of the fun, or just the nerves, or their performance. What is it do you remember about that first match?
Well, yeah, I definitely remember the first one. It was a combination of the nerves and adrenaline, but at the same time, the fun. Like I said, I grew up shooting all my life, but I was never, or didn't do any shooting while on the timer or being timed and scored.
Right.
It was mostly planking, and we considered our shooting skill a success if we were able to harvest a deer at 300 yards or 200 yards with your high-powered rifle.
Right.
But yeah, this was a whole different breed for me. So here I am down at 17 South, and I'm thinking, oh, I don't know about all this. I'm just kind of wondering here. And so they bring me up to the line. I tell them I'm new, and they were gracious and courteous, and I mean, they're a great group of people down there. And they said, "Don't worry about it. Just stay calm. Just take your time, and you'll learn the ropes."
Right.
And so first stage, stood up on the start line there, and I took a deep breath. I said, "Okay, this ain't gonna be so bad, Yeah, this thing, the timer goes off, and I'll just kind of run around here and shoot at some paper targets, and it'll all be good." Timer goes off, and oh my gosh, what an adrenaline charge! And it's like just from nowhere. And then when you get done, you're shaking so bad that you can't even stand still or hold the gun hardly. And it's like, so as you unload and show clear, and you're like, I can't even pull the slide back. My nerves are shaking so bad.
Yep. I remember vividly that the buzzer brain that hits you, it's like you completely blank out everything. You have no idea what you did on the stage. I had no idea what you were supposed to do, and you just start shooting at stuff.
That's it. It was really a rush there, and wild. And then, the second stage, they put us in this old beat up minivan that's been shot up and shot to pieces. And yeah, and he's like, "Okay, here's where we're going to start now." And I'm like, "You're kidding, right?"
You got the good props on your first day.
Yeah, we did. Right out of the gate. But so that's how I really got started into it. One of those things, like I said, was always on my list. I wanted to do, and just never got around to it until finally I did. This November will be a year ago. And
Okay.
yeah, so I'm coming up on my 1 year anniversary, and started down at 17 South, and there's been no stopping me ever since.
So give us a little shout out to your home club. Tell us about 17 South.
Oh, 17 South, those guys are a great bunch. They're down outside of Savannah, and we have a really nice facility down there. We're able to set up a minimum of 5 to 6 pistol bays or stage bays, and they run several matches actually throughout the month. But the two primary that I participate in are the IDPA and USPSA, obviously. They do some, I think, steel challenge and 3-gun and carbine stuff on the other weekends, and they'll kind of rotate out. But the guys, like I said, the guys down there are a great bunch. Anytime you have a question, they are more than willing to share with you and to help you out and answer your question. And if they don't know the answer, they'll ask around until they can find one that at least sounds good. But yeah, and Mark, he pretty much oversees things at the time, and that's a cool thing about. I wouldn't say necessarily. Of course, obviously, I'm partial 17 South, but that's something I have noticed within the competitive arena or community among other shooters is just the camaraderie there, and how everybody's willing to help each other, and they're very extremely friendly. If you ever have a question or anything, you just ask.
Yep.
So have really been impressed with that, and actually kind of surprised, because when the timer goes off, we're all out for for me.
Right. Exactly. And Mark is Mark Compton, the MD at 17 South, right?
That's right. Mm-hmm.
So, in your first year, how often have you been shooting local matches there at 17 South, and have you gotten a chance to shoot any sanctioned matches yet?
Actually, I have, Lloyd. I try to go to every IDPA match that they have, and depending on obviously other commitments that I have, try to make it to the USPSA matches as well. So about twice a month, I try to go. And I'm one of these it's funny. I was talking with a young fella who has an interest in it, and he's I've been trying to help him out and kind of get started in the sport. And he told me the other day, I asked him, I said, "Adam, are you ready to go?" we're going to head down to 17 South here in a couple of weeks. You're going to be ready to go? And he's like, I don't know. I think I still want to take a little more time to study the rule book and all that. I said, yeah, don't be like me. Just jump in the deep end without no clue, which is what I did. So, but to answer your question, Lloyd, sanction matches. I had been shooting probably, I'd be right at 5 or 6 months with 17 South there at the local club, and said, you know what, to get where I want to be, I have a goal, and my goal is to make nationals.
Mm-hmm.
And in order to make nationals, I've got to begin competing on that level of the sanctioned events. And so, about 5, 6 months ago, I started shooting with Virginia State. I've shot North Carolina State. And then obviously USPSA, I did Georgia State match, and I just got back from actually Port Malabar, Space Coast Challenge down there last weekend. Yeah.
Very cool.
So,
what do you remember from that first sanction match?
From the very first sanction match, this is a whole lot tougher than I thought it was going to be.
Yep. Yep.
Oh gosh, it was. And but now, like I said, the guy,
was that Virginia State?
That was
Virginia State.
Yeah,
at Kettlefoot.
It was at Kettlefoot. That's right. And then to top it off, I mean, it was a beautiful drive up there, and that should have been my first clue. Because locally we learn how everybody gets their cart, and they fix their cart and have all their gear and stuff in it. Beautiful drive up to Kettlefoot, and we get in there, and I see that we're at the foot of mountains actually. And I unload my cart and I pull it up to the station, do the check-in, and we get ready to go to the first match. And this thing is like up a 40-foot grade incline going to the top of the mountains for the first stage. And I'm like, oh, you gotta be kidding me.
I'll just leave the cart down here at the bottom.
Absolutely. Yeah. I did that on the return trip.
So what is your favorite division? What gun are you competing with most often now?
My favorite division for IDPA would be Enhanced Service Pistol, ESP. Mm-hmm. I really like the 1911 platforms, and so what I shoot in that division is the Springfield Elite Range Officer, or Range Officer Elite Operator model. Mm-hmm. Is what I shoot in that one.
Well, you said you had a goal that you wanted to compete at that level where you could actually qualify for nationals. What are you doing for practice now? Are you doing live fire, dry fire, and matches, or and how heavy are you into each of those things?
Oh, cool. Yeah. Actually, it's a combination of all three, Lloyd. I'll dry fire if it's a non-match month, or let me rephrase that, if it's a non-sanctioned event month. My dry fire usually will consist of an hour a day. And then, and then if I know I'm getting ready for something coming up that's a pretty biggie, then I'll dry fire 2 hours a day, usually an hour in the morning, an hour in the evening. And then I'll also supplement that with 2 to 3 trips to the backyard. And so, that's our range out here in the country. We have a backyard, and so, but I'll supplement 2 to 3 times a week. On the average, as far as round count, I'll try to get in a minimum of 200 to 300 rounds each time. And so then, and obviously going towards the national goal of shooting as many sanctioned events as I can.
Well, tell us. When you are doing your live fire, is there a particular drill that you work on? Do you have a routine that you follow at the range, or is it all based on? Is it based on improving past performance, where you say, "Oh, I got to work on this," or is it based on stages for an upcoming match? How do you structure your practice?
In the beginning, or when we're getting ready for a sanctioned event, my practices will be from review of video footage. of like the previous match that I shot. I'll go through and critique that and break it down, look at the fundamentals and see, where there was a break in the system or where something did not quite work. And of course, I'll take my notes, and then we go out to the range, and I just start drilling those and running through them. And I'll set up stages and check my times and see, where can I be faster, where can I be better at this, or how can I save time on this particular section here. And as we get closer in, and if we get a matchbook in time, then usually I'll pick one or two stages that I think are going to give me a little bit of trouble. And I'll try to mimic those or set those up as best I can and run through them a couple of times if possible.
What kind of stages do you like? What when you see a matchbook for an upcoming match and you say, "Ooh, that looks like a lot of fun." What do you enjoy? Do you like a lot of movement? Do you like a lot of movers? Do you like hard targets, lots of close partials? Do you like, wide open kind of run and gun stuff? What really excites you when you see a matchbook and when you get to a match and finally see it?
For me, I think I like the really tight, close quarter run and gun. For example, like some of the house structures, or a great example down at Space Coast Challenge, we had one, the Smuggler's Tunnel, which was a structure that simulated a tunnel, but it was up off the ground. You didn't literally have to crawl through it. And along the way, that's a blessing for us with the bad knees. But as you go through it, it has the multiple ports in it, and you're just going from one side to the next, locating and engaging targets. And so, I kind of like that aspect. Or was it, I think Virginia had an old shack that you entered into and had multiple threats or multiple targets in it.
North Carolina's got the shoot house. Yep, I like those too. Is there a particular stage from the sanctioned matches that you shot this year? Any one particular that jumps out at you that you thought, wow, that was really inventive, or you'd never seen anything quite like it before, or was really fun?
Let's see. Actually, it's one that I just shot down at Space Coast Challenge last weekend. I can honestly say I have never been handcuffed in the back seat of a car before. And until last weekend, and my firearm and all magazines are in a bag sitting in the front seat, and you have to retrieve those and uncuff yourself and engage the targets. And so, but that was a lot of fun. It was a challenge, but it was fun.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it was.
Very neat. Well, as we wrap this up, what is it about IDPA? You just started a year ago, and you're really into it. You've kind of gone head over heels. What is it about IDPA that drew you in? What is it about it that you love? And when you talk to other people about it, like your friend, you're trying to encourage them to come. What is it you tell them is so great about IDPA that you love so much?
Well, initially, one of the things I love is obviously we get an opportunity to use our guns and to practice, because IDPA, obviously the focus is on defensive type of use of firearms and being able to defend yourself. And I think we need to practice and be more proficient with it. If that's what we're going to do, we certainly have that responsibility to not only ourselves, but the public in general. And, that's really what initially got me into it. And then as I began to spend more and more time in it, I would say it's just the people, the community. There's a connectedness there. There's a willingness, to help out and to do whatever needs to be done. And so I think that really is one of the biggest drivers. And for me, I think as well, another big factor that plays into it is that's the one time, believe it or not, that when I go out and actually compete and I'm on the field, that my Parkinson's doesn't bother me nearly as much, and I can kind of leave that to the side, and I can be this for this time, and it's kind of like therapy.
Very cool. Well, I was going to wrap up with that, but I want to ask you, you just mentioned Parkinson's, because I've actually come across other shooters who have different stages of Parkinson's. What is it about the sport, or what is it about shooting that seems to be so therapeutic, or seems to sort of allow you to forget for just that short period of time that you have that condition? And how does it affect you in terms of your shooting?
Well, the way that it has a therapeutic effect for me is, I think it's the ability to fulfill something that's deeper on the inside, or something at a deeper level, and that is to inspire other people, and maybe empower them a little bit. And what I mean by that is, obviously, shooting competitive action pistols is a bit more challenging with Parkinson's because of the tremors, and we don't move quite as fast as people who don't have those type conditions. And my hope is this: that if somebody can look at me out there on the field and see that I'm doing what I'm doing, then they can turn around and hopefully that inspires them, and they can say, well, if he's doing it, why am I not doing it? Why can't I do it? I've wanted to do this or that, whatever their goal is in life. And if he can do it, I know I can do it. And so, it's kind of, for me, it's on a deeper level, and that may sound like very surrealistic and whatever, but that's where I get my therapy from.
Very cool. Very cool. Steven, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. I really do appreciate it. I've enjoyed getting to know you, and I hope at some point I get to run into you at a match.
Sounds great. Well, Lloyd, I thank you and appreciate you for allowing me to be a part of it. And like I said, maybe someday we'll meet up and be squatted together and shoot a match together.
That sounds good.
All right.
All right, that's all we've got for you today. Thank you so much to our special guest for coming on the show. If you know somebody in the IDPA community who deserves some recognition, I'd love to talk to them. Send me an email at Lloyd, LLOYD, at unloadpodcast.com. Check out the show notes for today's episode and listen to past episodes at unloadpodcast.com. And if you like what you hear on the show and you'd like to support us, help keep the lights on, pay the bills, we would love your support. Visit patreon.com/unload and make a small monthly contribution to help continue what we're doing here. Tune in again next week for another edition of Unload and Show Clear.